quarterback TJ Finley has officially transferred from LSU to Auburn, and that has many fans asking themselves, what does this mean for Bo Nix? Let's talk about it. We have spent just an absurd amount of time talking about this whole QB situation and speculating what's going to happen, who's going to be the starter, and ultimately when we get to that first game, who's coming out onto the field to lead the Auburn Tigers. This was one of the biggest focuses of A-Day, because going into A-Day we thought we were going to see a true quarterback competition, and we're going to see these six quarterbacks kind of duke it out, and one or two guys would come out on top. Unfortunately, that's not what we saw. I mean, take Garnett. How do we only get 50 seconds of playtime from Garnett? You saw the outcome. He's gone now, but that was a big complaint that I had and a lot of other people had. We thought we were going to get one thing. We got something completely different, and you saw the result. Okay, I'm trying really hard not to be salty about A-Day. I mean, the coaches made amazing decisions on A-Day. Grant Loy should have gotten double the playing time. But getting back to what I was saying, coming out of A-Day, we wanted to see a true quarterback competition. We didn't get it, and more than anything, we really wanted to see who's the number two guy, or at least who's 1 and 2. We've got Bo, but who's going to be right there with them? We wanted to see the Davis show, and we didn't get it. We got to see a little bit of Davis, but not as much as we would have liked to have seen. So because of that, who's the number two guy? Bo's obviously number one coming out of A-Day, and all we know for sure is that we need a number two guy, and Grant Loy ain't it. Now enters TJ Finley into this whole quarterback equation. And now this was an interesting move for a lot of reasons, and some of those reasons are, some of the reasons I'm most intrigued about is, why did TJ Finley agree to leave LSU? Was he in that bad of a position that he didn't think he was going to get any playing time? Ultimately, we've got Bo Nix, who's been here for 2 years. So why would TJ Finley leave where he was at LSU, knowing he got to start 5 games last season, to come to Auburn where there's already an established starter? There's a couple of possibilities in my mind. One of those is, was he promised something? And what I mean by that is, was he promised something in the form of starting? I doubt he was given that promise. Or was he promised something in the form of maybe his brother? His brother's coming up as a recruit. So was something promised to his family as far as his brother getting a seat at the table at Auburn? Maybe, maybe not. But more than anything, I think the reason that TJ agreed to come to Auburn is that he sees a possibility. He's not going to just agree to come to be backup. He's already had that taste of starting in the SEC, and he wants that again. So I think more than anything, he believes that he can be the starter and he can win out over Bo Nix. I don't think he was promised that, but I think he has, maybe he was promised that he would have a chance to fight for that spot. And if he was promised that, then I think in his mind, he believes he can beat out Bo and become the starting quarterback for Auburn, possibly as soon as this season. Let's not forget that TJ Finley said this when asked about the quarterback situation: "It ain't like I'm going there to be a backup." Based on some comments that TJ's made, it does seem like his family was a part of this equation, and that's where I started to talk about what was he promised. And it's possible that he was promised a spot for his brother on the team. His brother is currently a wide receiver, and it is possible that Cody Finley, Harsin promised Cody Finley a spot on the team. The reason I have some doubt about this speculation is that currently Cody Finley does not have any offers from SEC schools that I saw. He has an offer from South Alabama, but no offers from any SEC schools at the moment. But that could change going into next year. So really on that's very speculative, and time will tell what will actually happen with his brother. Going back to the Auburn quarterback talk, first and foremost, as fans, we need to support whoever wins out and gets that starting job. Harsin is going to do what he thinks is best for the team, and whether that is Bo or TJ or Davis or whoever it may be, we need to go ahead and support them, and we don't need to bash anybody else. And you remember, there's a difference between critiquing and bashing a player, but we don't need to. We need to support whoever gets the job. So the question is, who will get that job? The answer really is we don't know. We have no clue. Probably it's going to be Bo Nix. I mean, I have no reason to think otherwise at this point in time, but let's take a look at the numbers to see if there's anything we can learn between these two quarterbacks, Bo Nix and TJ Finley. As far as a direct comparison goes between Bo and TJ, there's really only 5 games that TJ played last season. So in order to do a direct comparison, I will have to eliminate the Auburn versus LSU game. The reason for that is we can directly compare the defenses they played against last year in 2020, and we have to take out the Auburn LSU game because obviously in that game they did not play against the same defenses. But we can still include the other 4 games to get a more or a closer comparison between these two quarterbacks. And those games are South Carolina, Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Alabama. To do this direct comparison, I went ahead and compiled a spreadsheet because you know how much I love a good spreadsheet. But we're going to pop over onto this spreadsheet, look at these numbers in a little bit more detail, and I told you it's going to be from those 4 SEC games that I mentioned. I excluded the Auburn LSU game for obvious reasons because we can't do a direct comparison. And we're going to look at some of those quarterback stats like pass completion percentage, passing touchdowns, some rushing stuff, all those good things. So let me go ahead and transition over. Here we go. Okay, so at the top you can see I have it broken down game by game. I'm not looking at the game by game stats right now. I really just compiled it all into a 4-game, compilation, put all those stats together from those 4 games that we mentioned. South Carolina, Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Alabama. And so when we do that, let's look at what we actually have. So you can see Nix is going to be this middle column right here. Finley is going to be on the right, and it tells you what they are on the left side. So once again, Nix is that middle column, Finley on the right. So as far as completions go, I really just want to focus on that completion percentage. And what you're going to notice is that they are virtually equal. You have Nix at 58% completion and Finley at 57.8. Very, very close. Below that, the passing yardage. Nix had 830 yards and Finley had 798 yards. Once again, that is very, very close. Let me scroll down just a smidge. You are going to notice that as far as passing touchdowns go in those 4 games, Nix had 2. Finley had 5. Pretty close, and the game situations could have made that vary a little bit because the other stats were so close. And then interceptions, Bo had 5, Finley had 3. Now this is where we see a lot of separation because I do think the passing situation between those two quarterbacks is very similar, but we see a lot of separation between the two of them when we start looking at the rushing stats. For rushing stats, we have rushing yards for Nix 147 and for Finley 36. Going down a little bit more, yards per attempt. Can you see that? There we go. Yards per attempt, 3.27 for Bo and 1.5 for Finley. And then rushing touchdowns, 4 for Bo and 1 for Finley. And so really what this tells us is that as far as the passing game goes, looking at the stats of completion percentage, yardage, and passing touchdowns and interceptions, they're both pretty similar. There's not a whole lot of difference. They're pretty similar. Where we do see some big differences is that Bo is clearly the better rusher out of the two, so he's able to make some of those passes, at least in comparison to Finley, but he's much better at pulling that ball and running it if he needs to, or if it's a design run play. So that was a direct comparison of the 2020 stats of the same 4 games that each quarterback played. The only other way I can really think of to break this down is to look at TJ Finley's first 5 SEC games as a freshman compared to Bo's first 5 SEC games as a freshman. So for TJ, that was 2020. For Bo, that was 2019. Obviously, we're going to have some differences in the teams they played, where they played, all that kind of stuff. And obviously, Bo had a couple of games, 2 cupcake games and 1 game against Oregon that he had before getting to SEC play that TJ Finley did not. But this is, kind of the quickest way I can compare the two. It's just another metric we can look at and see if we see any difference or if we still see the same similarities between the two. So let's go ahead and take a look at those first 5 SEC games as freshmen and see if we see any similarities or differences. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at those stats and see what we have. So once again, Nix is that middle column and TJ Finley is on the right. And what you're going to notice is that through 5 SEC games as a freshman, Bo had a 55% completion rate. Finley was 57.1. Bo had 8 passing touchdowns. Finley had 5. Bo had 4 interceptions. Finley had 5. And, once again, as far as the passing game goes, I see a lot of similarities. Completion percentage is about the same. Yardage is pretty close to the same. And so there are a lot of similarities in the two. And once again, I'm seeing that same pattern. This is where we have some differences. When we get to that rushing game, I'm not even going to read all that out. You can see it on the screen because Bo won 115 rushing yards, Finley 34. There's no comparison between the two in that aspect of the game. So ultimately, I think we see, as far as a passing quarterback goes, at least comparing freshman season to freshman season and even looking at the 4 similar games they had last year in 2020, they're pretty similar. And so the question is, why is Finley coming to Auburn if Bo and Finley are so similar? So this is, I guess, my final conclusion with the whole TJ Finley, Bo Nix situation. I think when Harsin was looking at everything, he really saw that he needed 2 solid options at quarterback. You never know what's going to happen. Somebody could get hurt. Different things happen. And so you need to have at least 2 or 3 solid options at quarterback. I think in his head he thought that was Grant Loy, but as we saw with the A-Day situation, it is not Loy at all. And so he started looking, well, who's my number 2 guy? Is it Davis? Maybe, but he hasn't played at the college level before. So maybe not. But then this TJ Finley guy shows up as a possible transfer, and he goes after him because at least what we do know is he is similar in that passing game. Yes, he's younger. Yes, he's going to still make some mistakes, but he is a possibility. And so we have to trust that Harsin sees something. He knows what he's doing, whether it's bringing him over to replace Bo or just to provide a solid option as a backup quarterback. Who knows? I'm not sure, but I'm going to trust that Harsin knows what he's doing. I think ultimately when we get to the first game of the season, Bo is going to be QB1. There's nothing that's happened yet to make me think anything different will happen. I think Bo's going to be the guy when we have the first game of the season. The true question is still, and I've said this multiple times, who is going to be the quarterback one for the Penn State game, but really who is going to be QB1 after the Penn State game. I hope you enjoyed this stat breakdown between TJ Finley and Bo Nix. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.